NESIVAS SHALOM Parshas Nasai. This year is Le'ilu Nishmas, my father, Rabbi Chiyuvin Tzion ben Reb Dov, and my mother, Mindel Bas Reb Yisrael. Everybody wants to be able to be a source of blessing to other people. You want to bless your children, you want to bless a chassan kala, you want to bless a friend. We always bless, we're always benching other people, right? Now the question really is, how does blessing work? In other words, a person goes to Rosh Hashanah. It says everything is ksuvim, everything is set on Rosh Hashanah, how much money he's going to make, how much everything is going to... It's all set for him. Then comes along a friend of his, or a Rav, or a Tzaddik, or a Kohen, by Birchas Kehanim. Somebody comes and says, you should make a lot of money, you should be gebenched, you should have nachas from your kids, you should be gebenched, you should be blessed. And all of a sudden, it tilts in Shemayim, and because somebody said those words, or has that feeling, that person gets more. How does this make any sense? You ever think about that? We're always going for brachas. We go for brachas, but how does it work? So the NESIVAS SHALOM really breaks down what blessing is, how it works, and how you can be a source of blessing to other people. Now, just take a step back. It has nothing to do with how big of a tzaddik you are. Of course, probably a bigger tzaddik is a bigger bracha, but the fact is, every person on your level, you have a very, it's a powerful thing. You can bless someone and enhance their lives. And there's a way to do it. There's a tool that increases your ability to do it. And that's a very cool thing to have, to be a source of blessing. Avraham Avinu was a source of blessing. It says whoever touched Avraham Avinu was blessed. His radiance, his shine, his vibe was so great. His energy was so great. Called Haroya Avraham Avinu Mizbarech. Even whoever saw him became benched. You imagine the power that a person has. So you can be that person. You can be that person for your friends, for your family, isn't it cool? It's a power, it's a superpower. But it is a spiritual superpower that really doesn't make any sense. In this world, if you don't believe in Hashem, and if you don't believe in spirituality, and you just think that this is all Big Bang, how does telling somebody, I bless you, that you should, what does it mean? What does it do for that person? Nothing. And we believe in ruchnius, but still, why does me caring about you and blessing you change your life, change what you were supposed to get as prescribed on Rosh Hashanah by Hashem? So I think that in addition to learning Torah, I think it's a very cool concept. And that's why we're going to learn it today. How you can be a source of bracha to the world, to anybody you want. Now, he brings down the following. We have a problem, a fundamental problem. Every bracha that we make goes like this. Baruch atah Hashem, blessed are you Hashem, Elokeinu melech ha'olam, Lord of the universe, King of the universe, Asher kedishanu b'mitzvaysav, you commanded us with your mitzvahs, with your you made us holy with your commandments. Vitzivanu, and you commanded us to blah blah blah. Lahalik ner shel Shabbos, al natilas yadayim, al mitzvahs tzitzis. That's the prescription. That's the set way that brachas work. All of a sudden, we have something called Birchas Kehanim. The Kehanim get up, and they're going to give a bracha to Klal Yisrael, to the people, right? And they say, Baruch atah Hashem, good. Elokeinu melech ha'olam, good. Asher kedishanu well, we stick something in the middle. Asher kedishanu b'ktushasoi shel Aaron, with the holiness of Aaron. What does that mean? Where is that coming in? Why are we sticking in words? I love the NESIVAS SHALOM because he asks basic fundamental questions that every fourth grader should be able to ask. And it's sad that sometimes kids ask questions and parents or educators, instead of saying, wow, what a brilliant question, let me find out about it, sometimes they say, oh, stop it with your questions. Wait, what are you asking? You look at NESIVAS SHALOM on Chumash, anything. He starts off with 10 questions that are simple, not Kabbalistically questions. Very simple question. Hey, Dad, a 4-year-old can ask, fourth grader, whatever, why do we add in these words? And every father will be like, shut up, kid. Asher kedishanu b'ktushasoi shel Aaron is added, and then mitzivanu levarech es hama Yisrael. But then all of a sudden, be'ahava, another word, extra word, with love. doesn't say, Asher Kedeshanu Mitzvaysev Tzivanu Lahadlik Ner Shel Chanukah B'Simcha. Lahadlik Leishe Basukah Be'ahava. What is Levarach Asama Yisrael? That's the mitzvah. That's the mitzvah. What's Be'ahava? Parsha Pshat is that it's telling you, do this with love. I don't even know what that means. Do this with simcha means do it with a happy heart. Do this with love, do it with a loving heart. That's like a tanai in the mitzvah. It's an enhancement of the mitzvah, but is it part of the mitzvah? If it's not part of the mitzvah, why is it included in the bracha? It's not the essence of the mitzvah. It doesn't say Shekadishanu mitzvaysa v'tzivanu al netilas lulav and tell you all the different halachas of the lulav. Al netilas dalad minim that should be kosher and checked by your rabbi and it should come like. Don't tell me details in the actual bracha. We never do that. There's probably other good examples. Al achilas matzah b'kezayis. We don't add in. So what is this ahava? Is that a chelik of the mitzvah? It shouldn't say it. Is it a tanai in the mitzvah? A condition? Maybe. But it still shouldn't say it because every mitzvah has a tanai. Lahadlik ner shel Chanukah has a tanai. What time? How high? How low? You don't put the tanai, the conditions of the mitzvah into the bracha. So what does it mean? I love this question. Again, fundamental, easy questions that are going to reveal a whole revelation of what these actual little words mean when you delve into it together with me as we go through the NESIVAS SHALOM. That's his questions. Why does it say Asher Kedeshanu B'Ktushasa Shel Aaron? And the second question is, Gamasha Oimim Levarchas Am Yisrael Be'ahava, you're supposed to bench them with love. Im Omnam Berchas Kehanim Tzrichim Lias Be'ahava. It's true that it has to be done out of love. As the Zohar HaKadosh says, in Chelek Gimel, that a kohen that doesn't love the people in the crowd, or the crowd doesn't love the kohen, he should not do Berchas Kehanim. Imagine you're in a fight with a guy. You hate his guts, he hates you, whatever it is. Or it doesn't say hatred, not love. You just don't, he doesn't love you. You don't love him. He should not get up for Birchas Kehanim. That's what it says. So yes, it's a condition. In order for me to bless you, I have to love you. I have to have feelings of love towards you. Or at least not negative, and at least to love you because you're a Jew. But he says, fine, but that's one of the, it's true, it's a condition. Umadua nikva zois benusach habracha. But why is it in the nusach of the bracha? Right? Ach l'chayr zeu rak din medinei ha-mitzvah. It's one of the dinim of the mitzvah. You know, you have to wear your pants. You can't come not dressed theistic you're going to put that in there also, all the dinim of the mitzvah. It's one of the dinim mitzvah. Madua nikva zois benusach habracha. Now listen to this. Here we go. He's going to explain the concept of bracha, the concept of blessing in the world that we, until now, took as matter of fact. Of course, you go to a Rav, you go a Rebbe, a Chacham, a friend, you go to a Chasana. What do you tell a Chasan Kala? Mazel Tov, you should be Zoicha to build a Bayis Neman B'Yisrael. Why does that do anything? He's going to explain it. The way that God created the world, it's like a person who decides to make a video game, a computer game. It starts off black, and then you start creating the rules of your computer game. Hashem had no world. He decided to create a universe, but he did it with certain rules. He built it with certain qualities. He made it with Eish and Mayim and Ruach. He designed it. It's designed very, very well. And there's a natural order to the world that he created. And that's that every single thing has to come from a mashpia and a makabel. Something is giving and the other thing is receiving. Just like the creation of a person comes from the parents, or a man and a woman, one is giving and the other one is receiving. Mashpia and a makabel creates a person, and all living creatures, the same system. Why does it have to be that way? Because everything that's created and everything in the world that has shefa, that has life and that has sustenance is done the same way. All the things that are flowers, gardens, Ki yadua al yidei mashpia makabel. There's also something is being mashpia into the ground. Hageshem v'hashemesh. There's rain and there's sun. Heim bechinas mashpia. They are being mashpia. They're giving over shefa. There's a better word for it. I can't think of it right now. They are giving over from their energy. Ve'aretz, and the land mekabelas is receiving v'alidei zeh mitzmicha. And that's how the seed can grow. Ve'akesher b'chol habruim. This is already Kabbalistic. We would have no way of knowing this. But the kesher, the connection between all of the creations in the world, bein hamashpia v'hamakabel, we said that in order for anything to happen, there has to be a mashpia and a makabel. But what connects them? The connection between them is al yidei midas ahava, through the midah, the trait of love. Everything in the world, the man and the woman who make a child, they're connecting. He's a mashpia, she's a makabel. What's the connection? Love. Now, I wouldn't know this about the sun and the rain, that their connection to the ground that's very far away from them, and it's really nothing personal. It's just kind of what we do. We're just sunny and we're just rainy. But yet, he's saying, and this is Kabbalistically, that it is midas ahava. Uvichlal HaKasuv, and this goes into the pasuk that says in Tehillim, Ki Amarti, Hashem says, I said, Olam Chesed Yiboneh. Hashem gave us a little bit of a clue to the recipe that He created the world with something called Chesed. What is Chesed? Graciousness. Chesed. Chesed is what you do for something or someone that they don't earn it. They don't deserve it. If you work and you're supposed to get paid $1,000 a week and you get paid, that's not Chesed. Chesed is extra. Chesed is above and beyond. Hashem says, I created, when I made this computer program called Earth, Project World, which has a 6,000 year, that's the timeline of it. And then I created all these different things in the universe, and I created this, let's make them warm. Let's make a sun. He did all of this. That's his computer. But I'm telling you, I did it out of chesed. Shekol binyan ha'olam, the creation and the building of the world, is al yedei midas ahava, shal yoda hakesher bein hamashpia v'hamakabel. Love is chesed. Because I love you, I want to do extra for you. Otherwise, it's a business deal. What makes somebody do chesed with someone is, I care about you. It comes from love. Now, if you give, let's say, $1 to a homeless person, it doesn't mean you love him. But you're doing chesed because if you dig down, that means of chesed is channeled through a love of humanity, a caring of humanity. Caring comes from love. So sometimes we think of love as a romantic love, which it is, a parental love to a child, which is unconditional and unbreakable, which is true. But every little thing that you do for somebody that's extra, it's coming from a shirish of love that's watered down because you don't know them, but they're a human or they're a Jew. We're very charitable to people who are Jewish because we feel connected. We're a family, a family member. Maybe it's a second cousin, and they grew up in a different country, so there's no relationship love between you and them, and yet you'll want to, if you find out that they need money, you'll give more than to a stranger, because there's the love is stronger. That's the basis of everything. That's actually, the Torah tells us that you're not allowed to ignore your family members in pain, because you have an achrayus to it, because whether you know them or not, or whether you like them or not, there's a love connection because they're your cousin. Yeah, I guess if you could undo that if you don't get along, maybe, I don't know. But the Torah says mibsarcha al tis'alem, which means from your relatives you're not allowed to ignore. So there's a mitzvah to give money to poor people, and if you see a poor person, it's a bigger chiyuv on you. And aniye ircha, somebody who's in your city, lives there, more. But if you ignore giving money to someone in your family that needs money, it's a lav in the Torah. You did an avera. You did a sin. You're going to get punished for that. Reb Shmuel Kamenetsky, Shlita Rosh Hashiva, said to me that the same thing is with any need. It's not just financial. If there are people who are sick in the hospital, And you can visit them, or you can WhatsApp them or text them and make their day and visit them and do a mitzvah, right? But there's so many people. Some people do it actually. Some people actually, part of the day, like the Heilige Tzaddik of Ari Levine, I just read his book. It's unbelievable what he did. He went to visit lepers. He went to visit people that nobody wanted to visit to put a smile on somebody's face, to make people happy. So, yeah, some people do it, but it's not a lav in the Torah that you ignored that there are people in the hospital right now that you don't know. But if it's mipsarcha, if it's your family, and they're missing something, whether it's money, or if they're sick, to visit them, the other one, mevaka chayla, right? Or if it's that they're emotionally in pain, you have a chiyuv in the Torah not to ignore them. You know that they're depressed or they're going through a hard time, and you don't make contact with them. You feel uncomfortable. A lav in the Torah, you got punished just like a lot of other lavim. Other lavim, at least you get some pleasure from. You can say, I enjoyed this avera. What enjoyment do you have by just ignoring the plight of your relatives? Anything. If they need money, they're making chasana, bar mitzvah, they have a problem at home, they need money, they need help, they need cooking, and you ignore your family, mibsarcha al tasalam, it's a lav in the Torah. Very, very frightening. We have to really be super careful. Anyway, the bottom line is that the world was created through love. So there's super love, and then there's other things where you care about, or you should care about, or you must care about, but the care is coming from love. Not coming from hate, it's coming from love. And that's the way the world was created, that love connects the mashpia and the makabel, and that's what makes things grow. Again, we would never be able to understand that the connection that's connecting the sun and the rain to the earth to create a tree or a flower or grass, that's love. So we're just gonna go with him that he understood that that's part of the way the world works. But certainly we do understand physically that he's right, that we could understand that the connection to create a child is supposed to be an attraction. Maybe hopefully it's love. But even if it's not love, it's not hate. It's coming from some kind of a connection between them that connects them, mashpia and the makabel. Just like by physical, in the world, that everything is built up and sustained and created through mashpia makabel, which is through connection of ahava. Kach, gam, kain, gam, also ha'anyanim haruchniim, spiritual concepts, heim rak al yidei mashpia u'makabel. Also, any growth that's happening spiritually is through a mashpia, a giver, and a makabel, and a receiver. V'efsher lo la'adam lakabel shum hasaga. Listen to these words. A person cannot grow and accept any comprehension in ruchnius, any spiritual growth, bilti al yidei mashpia. Only through someone who's giving you that knowledge, giving you that lesson to learn. A person can't grow without the mashpia. And the kesher, the connection between the mashpia and the makabel, is al yidei ahava, is through love. Now, that means, again, like I said before, sometimes a parent is able to mamish feel that tremendous ahava to their child, and of course you see it, or a rebbe, that his prized student, but sometimes the relationship between the parent and the child is watered down, usually because of a problem. Usually the child puts up a wall or there's issues, and many times there's a wall between the rebbe and the child that he just doesn't have that 100% love. But any bit that there is, even if it's diluted, it's coming from the world of love. Now, it's interesting that he doesn't say it here, because he really should. In NESIVAS SHALOM, written by the NESIVAS SHALOM, he says, with this concept, he says that the amount that a child will grow in the classroom depends on the love that the Rebbe has for the child. It's not just information that we're giving over to the child, we're giving over to make them frum, to make them love Hashem, to become erlich. It could be you'll give over information without love, and it could be that the child will get 100 on the test on information, but he's not your Talmud. You're not his Rebbe. You didn't fix him on the inside. The real growing of a child in a classroom It depends on the love that the Rebbe has for the child. Then the information, he'll get 100, maybe he'll get a 70, maybe he'll get a 50, because there's reasons why kids don't do well on tests. I know a kid that actually had a problem, some kind of a problem taking tests. He would always, the night before, get 100 in practicing with his tutor, and in school he would fail. There's other kids that maybe have learning disabilities. Maybe other kids are smarter, they remember more. They're smarter, they're not as smart. We're not talking about the mark. Because even if you get 100, it's nothing if the Rebbe doesn't have this midah of ahava to instill in you Yiddishkeit. Through the learning of the chaymer, of the material, but inside is much more, the connection. And it could be a student is not that smart, he's only going to get a 70. But it could be on the connection, the ruchniistic level, it's 100%. And he's connected to you with that ahava, and you'll see 20 years later a very big difference. The one who got 100 but the Rebbe didn't like, he's not going to be frum, or he didn't grow from that shefa, of that year, he didn't grow. And the one who struggled for whatever reason, maybe he wasn't feeling well, maybe he was sick, maybe he was down, but he felt that connection from the Rebbe, then he got that year, a year of chinuch, a real chinuch, of instilling that connection of that year to the Rebbe. Says the NESIVAS SHALOM these words, V'ragel ani, and I am rugel, I am used to, I constantly ask the Rabbeim, he was a Rosh Yeshiva, he had a yeshiva, I ask the Rebbe how much they love each child, how much feelings of love they have for each child, and from that I know how well the child is doing. Isn't that amazing? Isn't that amazing? Again, not doing in tests, doing for real. Sometimes you have a kid who's totally disconnected, but he's very smart. Rebbe doesn't like him, or he doesn't like the Rebbe. He's not steiging, but he's brilliant. He knows everything. He gets 100 on a test. Everybody's very happy. He didn't steig that year. The shefa and the makabel, the love, the hava wasn't there. Again, we have to have tests in order, because we don't know how to judge. But that's really not what it's about. It's about effort. It's about connection. What a kid in 4th grade, in 3rd grade, in 5th grade, in 8th grade, in any grade, is going to be when he's an adult, is the shefa he's going to get a whole year from that Rebbe who loves him at 100%, that every year, that's going to make the best adult, regardless of how he does on the tests. We need to do tests in order to know, actually, the real mechanchim don't need tests. The real mechanchim, they know how to judge, and they understand that this kid who got an 80 tried 10 times harder than the kid who got 100, and they are able to now, especially people know nefesh ha'adam, a lot of Rabbeim, of Rebbe's, they're heroes. They take lessons and they work on it. It's not like 50 years ago. You got 100, good. You got a 70, you're an idiot. No. They are able to really understand a little bit, to be like Hashem that judges effort. In my Sefer, GPS, Navigation for Your Soul, I talk about that. That really the problem is in the chinuch of our children is that they're brought up in an education system that judges lemaisa, judges facts, not effort. But in the world, Hashem judges effort, not reality. So we kind of train them to think that if they're not going to get 100 on the test, even if they tried really hard, that it doesn't count. But in Hashem's world, He's judging only the effort. If Hashem was marking the tests, not by, let's say there's 10 questions and each one's worth 10 points. The kid who got all 10 right might get a 50. He didn't really try. He just happens to be very smart, and he just chaps and he knows. There are some smart kids in the world. And then the one who gets only 5 right might get 100 because he cared and he tried and he has a learning disability, or he has something going on that he can't think right now, or whatever. Hashem judges effort. And part of the problem of our chinuch system, and I'm not criticizing it because it kind of needs to be that way, because we're not Hashem and we're not a Navi. We have no way of knowing how much effort that a person put in or not. So we have to go by tachlis. But it's foolish to think that that is actually meaningful. And a lot of Rebbeim are really, really changing, that they understand this kid's going through a hard time. We just had yesterday here in group where there's a girl who was emotionally and psychiatrically sick in 8th grade. She hardly was in school. She was in the psych ward. She tried to hurt herself, tried to kill herself. She went through a very hard time. And she didn't really show up. She didn't do tests. And they gave her full access to the graduation. She graduated, mamish like everyone else. They didn't hold it against her. Now, really, it's a chiddush, because 5 years ago, 10 years ago, for sure, it wouldn't have happened. They would have said, listen, she didn't show up. How can we graduate her? She didn't take tests. If she didn't take a test, how can I graduate her? She wasn't here. But Lamaisa, now we're beginning to understand the emotional and psychological and psychiatric pain and difficulty and challenge is just as real as physical. And what would be if it was physical? Davar Pashut. In other words, whoever thought it's a chiddush, and a lot of people say, really? Graduated her even though she didn't come, just because she's trying to kill herself and she's not sneeze anymore and she's not so frum anymore and she's struggling. How could you graduate her? How could you just put a cap and gown and say, oh, you're one of us? But if it was physical illness, it's davar pashut. The kid who gets cancer or any illness in 8th grade and therefore cannot show up, nobody's going to say, you're not graduating. So sorry about your cancer, but you didn't show up, you didn't do well, you didn't function well, you're not behaving properly. We're not graduating you. No. So what's changing is that we're realizing the value that it doesn't matter what's breaking somebody. It doesn't mean that they're any less worthy if they're physically ill or if they're emotionally, psychologically, spiritually ill. Back to what he says. V'rogelani, and I'm consistently asking the parents, the rabbeim, you can do it for parents also. They ask their rabbeim, how much do you love each kid? And I know how they're doing. I know how their neshama is growing that year. Not the test mark. It might affect the test mark, true, but that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about when you're a 4th grade Rebbe, a 5th grade Rebbe, you have a job. That kid has to grow that year a certain amount. Just like you understand he has to study a certain curriculum. You have to get him ready to be able to read. You have to get him learn Mishnayos, get him ready for Gemara, teach him Gemara. That's the curriculum. But internally, in order to be an adult, a frum, happy, successful adult, there's a curriculum of nefesh, ruach, and neshama, which please watch my shiurim that I learned Sefer NESIVAS SHALOM, is about that. I don't want to waste too much time on that. I don't mean waste, I think it's important, but we'll get back to this, what we're saying. So he says, I could tell if the Rebbe's being mashpia properly on this kid, and he's a makabel, based on how much the Rebbe loves the child. This is the concept of Amshachas HaBracha. We're going to continue next time.